Strange levees gave way across the Midwest, inundating hundreds of homes with walls of water. Thousands were forced to evacuate.
This area right here behind me would normally be farmland, but as you can see right now, it is filled with fast-moving floodwaters.
In the spring of 2019, floodwaters devastated America's farmlands.
This is, and for the record books, this topped all the records.
It's just the latest in a series of record-breaking storms in a region that has seen extreme temperatures, snowfall, and rain.
I think there is something changing. Whether it's warming or what that is, I don't know.
For farmers in the heartland struggling to stay afloat, the realities of a changing climate are getting harder to deny.
Our backs are against the wall. This system is not working.
Some are now embracing a green approach to adapt to a new normal. But will it be enough for their legacies to survive into the next generation?
This could be the final straw.
I'm scared for my future. I'm scared for my family's future. It's just sad to see something that was so great turn into this.
So this was all covered here?
Oh yeah, yep. It was, I don't know, probably judging by there, it's probably 2-3 feet on that one. Well, I drive by here 3-4 times a day and never really pay attention, you know, you just drive, it's your way to work, and yeah, it's kind of an eerie feeling, I guess, when you're walking down through here. See all the debris and the corn stalks, and yeah, it's a mess.
Brett Adams is a fifth-generation grain farmer who grew up and then raised his 2 children on this 4,000-acre corn and soybean farm. 3,200 of those acres are now underwater.
So this is all your farmland?
Yep, everything you can see right here is, we farm it all, yep.
You're from here?
Grew up here my whole life. I'm 39 years old. Farm down here, my parents farm, my grandpa farm, my great-grandpa farm.
When I look out here, it's the words escape me. I can't imagine. What kind of losses are you looking at?
You know, that's a hard question. I mean, I lay around at night and think about it, you know, and try to estimate how much these grain bins are going to cost to replace, how much corn I had in them that's now laying in the water that's ruined, you know, how much, if any of it's going to be salvageable.
Like several farmers in this region, Brett's land runs along the Missouri River, the longest waterway in the United States. The recent storms overwhelmed the levee system put in place 70 years ago to protect the areas along the banks when the river is high.
Where do you go from here?
I thought I've seen it all, and then this happens. You know, this is obviously and for the record books, this topped all the records.
When I was a kid, you know, my dad used to tell me, you know, we always needed rain or something, and an inch of rain or an inch and a half of rain was a big deal. Now it's like we get 4 or 5 inch rains all the time, or 6 inch rains even, you know? I mean, that was unheard of, I thought. But we've definitely seen big rainfalls here that I don't remember as a kid.
The recent spring flood was characterized as a 100-year event, but the same region was inundated with water from an overflowing Missouri River just 8 years ago in the spring of 2011. There were 5 levee breaches during that storm. In 2019, there were 50. That includes the levee near Brett's land, which had never failed before.
This area in particular was hard hit because of a levee breach. One of the things that the farmers are really nervous about here is that we're approaching the beginning of planting season, and they can't really do so until this area dries out, and that could be weeks away. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration recently issued a report that said that we are in for potentially one of the wettest seasons on record. For some farmers, this season may be a complete bust at this point.
Farmers are used to being at the mercy of Mother Nature, but over the past decade, she has become more unpredictable and more extreme. Nebraska just experienced its wettest 12 months on record, with more than 30 inches of rain falling from May 2018 to April 2019.
Can you talk a little bit about what those factors were that led to this incredible flood?
So winter was colder than normal overall. We had a very cold February. We also had a wetter than normal winter as well as fall. So the soils were at or near saturation. They were also frozen to a significant depth. We had a snowy winter. Lincoln and Omaha set new records for snowfall amounts for the winter. So we had several inches of water equivalent that was sitting on the landscape. And then March 13th comes along and we get this bomb cyclone, and there was nowhere for this water to go.
A bomb cyclone is essentially a winter hurricane and forms when a storm's pressure plummets, which increases its intensity. The one in March had the pressure of a Category 2 hurricane.
This area right here behind me would normally be farmland, but as you can see right now, it is filled with fast-moving floodwaters.
In Nebraska alone, over 17 areas saw record flooding. 65 counties and 4 tribal areas have issued emergency declarations.
How closely can you link this historic flood of 2019 with climate change? I mean, that's the million-dollar question, right?
Yes. So it's really difficult to link one specific storm with climate change. But what you can say is the atmosphere is different. It can hold more moisture. What we're likely to see is perhaps more strong storm events, like the one that we did experience.
Since the 1850s, family farms in the Corn Belt have dominated grain production in the United States and much of the world. Nebraska is the number 3 exporter of corn in the country and number 2 exporter of ethanol. But that market dominance has come at a cost to the environment. In 2017, agricultural production contributed to about 8% of total U.S. greenhouse gas emissions.
Hey, Brett. How are you? Good to see you again.
Good. How are you?
Good. How are things?
Good. A little windy today.
Yeah, chilly. How are you doing?
Oh, good. Yeah, just.
I mean, with all things considered.
It's been 3 months since our levee broke and everything, and 3 months is a long time, and nothing's really happened or changed.
So what did this look like before? Because I've only ever seen it underwater.
About like this. I mean, it's a road.
This is a normal road.
Yeah, we're driving down a county road right now. So this is it. What you're looking at right here, literally, is as far as we can go.
Can we get out?
Absolutely. Holy we got a lot further than we did the last time, but that's deep. We're in a lake. Yeah, here.
So there's nothing to stop water from coming in?
Nothing to stop. The only way the water will quit flowing in here is if that breach gets closed off through the levee, or the river dramatically goes down and gets back into its banks.
So when is that levee breach going to be fixed?
I don't have that answer when that breach will be fixed.
The Army Corps of Engineers manages the country's levee systems, but the levee system near Brett's land is listed as inactive after not meeting Army Corps inspection standards. The local levee board, which Brett is on, is responsible for the maintenance. Brett says the issue is related to pumping water from wells near the levee, a project they weren't able to complete before the flood. But by law, Army Corps rehabilitation funds cannot be used to repair an inactive levee.
Doesn't that basically rule out ever coming back then?
We're hoping we can get some government help through another avenue. That's the issue. That's the direction I'm trying to go right now.
But if the levee breach is not fixed, there's nothing to stop water from continuing to come in and just obliterate
That's correct.
the land here.
That is correct.
Major upgrades to the levee system require funding approval from Congress. So for now, the Corps can only repair the active levees to pre-flood conditions. But much of this infrastructure was built in the 1950s, and in just the past 30 years, the region has seen about an 8% increase in precipitation.
In your time here in Nebraska, has the Army Corps been challenged as much as you were after this 2019 flood?
Challenged, how so?
You had 50 breaches.
We do. So right. So okay. So this is the flood of record, and it is challenging, and it's going to be a long process to get the system back to some form of reliability. Our current plan is to close all the breaches by March of 2020. And from a flooding standpoint, no, I've never seen anything quite this challenging.
What about from the engineering standpoint?
The levees that we repaired in 2011, we had used some different construction methods, and we noticed that those levees performed much better than the previously constructed levees. So from that perspective, we know now how to go back in and rebuild the damaged levees to a better standard.
How different was the environment back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s when these were built than that what we see today?
Well, I'm not going to speculate about climate change. I mean, there's a lot of speculation about the climate change and things. The levees were built to protect the towns, the roads, the railroad, and all the infrastructure behind them. That infrastructure still exists today.
So without speculating about climate change, though, are you able to talk at all about whether the conditions that these levee systems are here to support are any different today than they were when they were built?
So we have climate records and we have rainfall and runoff records for over 100 years. And we've seen record runoff in the past 12 to 15 years. And what that is attributed to, as I mentioned before, I'm no expert, but we have seen record flow rates.
Reluctance to define more extreme weather as a result of a changing climate is common in the region, but the reality of the situation is getting harder to deny as it impacts the bottom line. Losses from this flood in Nebraska alone are estimated at more than $1 billion.
So normally these would be parked
Everything's
inside
in the
a shed.
Everything.
Down at your farm.
Yep, down there that's in the water.
So at this point, your multi-million-dollar investments are just sitting, baking under the sun. Under
Yeah,
the elements.
it's about like my multi-million-dollar investments of farm ground under the water. It's the same.
So normally this time of year, what would you be doing?
Normally this time of year I'd be sitting in my sprayer spraying
You'd be working the
crops.
land. Now that you have 80% less of that to do, what are you spending your days doing?
I spend most of my days now on the phone. I mean, literally I'm on the phone talking to congressmen, state representatives, anybody I can get my word out to about our situation and what's going on and the amount of disaster we have, to get some aid and get some help so I can get back to normal if there is such thing.
So you are tightening the belt?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We're tightening the belt up pretty good. I mean, just to plan ahead, we don't know how long this is gonna last. We could sit out 2 years, maybe 3 on this deal.
Do you and other farmers here chalk it up to it was a freak occurrence, the levee broke, or are you guys talking about larger climate issues?
You know, I'm not a climate change guy as far as, climate change, global warming, whatever, any of that stuff. Has the climate changed? Yes. So those two words go together. But am I a believer? I mean, I haven't seen all the facts, I guess, just to make an assumption on my own. But have I seen the weather change in, say, my 20-year farming career? Absolutely.
Climate change may be a hard sell in the heartland, but everyone seems to agree storms and economic strife have only gotten worse. Now, many farmers are open to a greener solution.
I'm basically here because I don't see any positive way that my family can be able to keep our family farming business, which we started in 1867, into the next generation. Our backs are against the wall. This system is not working economically, nor is it working environmentally.
Graham Christensen is a 39-year-old farmer who founded a grassroots company called GC Resolve. It promotes several initiatives, including a different approach to agribusiness called regenerative farming.
Conventional agriculture is a really tough road right now. Young people trying to get into it, they need other options.
We're at this point now where we need to decide where we go from here. It's time to either jump in or take a step back.
If you haven't received your regeneration proclamation, I can get one of those to you. It's our statement about the future agriculture, but it also starts to map out the business place of regenerative agriculture. Thank you for being here. We appreciate that so much.
Many typical farm practices, like making and adding fertilizer to soil and burning off crop residues, emit carbon. Advocates of regenerative farming say it will foster healthy soil that instead absorbs carbon from the atmosphere.
So why is this so important to you?
About 12 years ago, I started understanding the science of climate change. And at that point in time, as a farmer myself, it was clear that there was a lot of things that the farming community and farmers could do to help reverse the detrimental impacts of climate change. When the average farm across the United States has been in the red, has gone backwards, not made money for 5 years in a row, and then when you have something that is this devastating as what the bomb cyclone and the 2019 floods were here in Nebraska, those folks that were barely able to hang on, for some folks, this was the final icing on the cake.
You mean they would stop farming?
This could be the final straw. This will be the final straw for a handful of farmers, yeah.
This area was hit particularly hard by tariffs placed on China, America's largest soybean buyer. Setbacks from the storm have only made the financial situation worse. But Graham's pitch could help farmers bounce back in more ways than one. Healthier soils can absorb more water, lessening the impact of floods, and grow a wider variety of crops, meaning more opportunities to profit.
I know, like you've used some, different kinds of soil stability approaches, soil health approaches.
If we can get that soil microbes a cooking and get infiltration a lot better, that's going to help this. But in these kind of situations, even a good, fully healthy soil isn't going to solve our problem.
Chad Christensen, a friend of Graham's, enlisted his help to nurture his soil back to health.
But you're looking at wholesale changes in the way you have to do things in order to grow anything, it sounds like.
We're trying to regenerate these soils back to the way they were when they were grass pasture. 150 years ago, grass prairies were 3 foot tall. Buffalo, deer, all the wildlife would eat it, and they would grow back every year.
So you're feeling the change?
Yo, I think so, sure. I think there is something changing. Whether it's warming or what that is, I don't know. But these springs and summer storms that we're getting are definitely more extreme than they were a decade ago. So I think these goals of treating your soil better to help water infiltrate is huge.
What did you make of Chad and the land he's dealing with?
To be honest, I've never talked to Chad, in this context, about climate change until today. So, to me, his responses show a growing number and represent a growing number of us farmers that are more clearly understanding the dynamics that we're dealing with as emissions are increasing into our atmosphere.
It seems like in these parts, the words climate change people still have difficulty with those two words.
They do, yes. Well, then you talk about things that aren't difficult to talk about, like the flood of 2019 or the drought of 2012, and you use extreme weather events to talk about water conservation. The climate projections tell us that we'll likely get more extreme rain events, which will lead to more erosion. Well, if your soils are healthy, if they infiltrate water better, that will also sequester carbon and will work toward mitigation efforts. So there are tangible things that we can do now to mitigate future climate change.
So you see the skeptics maybe opening their ears a little bit?
Yes, I think when they have lost their operations or their field is completely flooded and they can't get in, they can't plant anything, their livelihood is directly impacted.
If everybody was utilizing more regenerative practices based on increasing soil health, more biodiversity, and proper management of livestock, this flood wouldn't have been so damaging. But we put ourselves in a position where we're working against the ecosystem instead of with it.
Graham says that in addition to an increased interest in soil management, GC Resolve's renewable energy initiatives have also taken off. He has projects booked all summer long to install eco-friendly systems like solar paneling on farms and residences.
Price of the energy in their house for a third of the price every time the sun's out shining. And then of course, if we add a battery pack to this, they're able to store that lower cost energy and then use it through the night. And of course, even be more resilient so another big storm comes through.
But even for those who are adapting with regenerative solutions, it doesn't mean they are embracing the idea of climate change.
Remember, farmers are first and foremost business people. So it's going to be driven on an economic case. Personally, I could care less what the reasoning is, if it's doing the good, if the practice is happening. And by us just focusing on the health of the soil and implementing these practices, we can do a tremendous amount of good for the climate, and not get hung up on, rhetoric or, sensitivities or, whatever is driving people to feel one way or another about towards climate change.
But it was dirty? And you unloaded the dirty dishes?
Even as Graham's eco-friendly practices start to catch on, it may be too late for some farmers.
That's the only bright thing going for me this summer is I got to spend more time with these guys. Usually I'm never here, am I? I'm always working, aren't I? Yeah.
Brett estimates close to $2 million in personal losses, and possibly more if he misses the next planting season. His current options are to wait for the water levels to go down, or secure outside funding to fix the levee breach.
Maybe I put on a hell of a good front of being positive. Don't get you wrong, I'm scared. I'm scared for my future. I'm scared for my family's future.
You don't want to watch soccer?
I'm more worried about my kids than anything. I don't know how you pick a career. I don't know, my kids might have to find out.
And this is in your blood.
Yeah, farming is.
Does it make you sad that you might be the last?
Yeah, that does. It's just sad to see something that was so great turn into this. That's what's sad. That's the worst part. Maybe there'll be a plan for something. Maybe it'll be farm ground someday again. Maybe it'll be water again. But what I will tell you is I'm not walking away without a fight.